Welcome in everybody to Betting Pros. It's time to place your bets. It is me, Joey P, Joe Pisapia, and this is BP NFL. It's time to look ahead to the best props of Championship Sunday, and there's nobody better to help me do that than, of course, the Welsh and the Undertaker, Andrew Erickson. We're going to talk about the favorite props. We're going to call some touchdowns. And of course, we're going to be watching a whole lot of football on Sunday. Cannot wait. We also learned on yesterday's show that Terrell Furman has never just eaten guacamole on its own as a dip. Welsh, do you find that disconcerting? Because I do.
Well, that's my bit. That's my bit where I'm like, I've never done this or that.
I know.
Like,
that's
what?
why I'm wondering where you stand with this.
He's never had guacamole?
He's had it, but like as like a little condiment side, but he's never like eaten it with chips. And he was flabbergasted by the whole thing that I put out there that, yeah, I'll make a whole bowl of guacamole and everyone will just go at it.
What was he doing with the condiment?
I don't know.
Just staring at it? Like, what do you do? You got a little cup of it. What do you...
Well, but you know what I mean? It's different as an appetizer as opposed to like something you put on a sandwich.
He was trying to figure out who sneezed on his plate. It's like, who had it?
Wait, hold on. Was he like eating it as its own meal with a fork?
No, like if they give you a little tiny cup of it, like for your tacos, and he's not crazy about it, but maybe he'll put a little bit in the taco or something. But he's never had it as like a giant bowl of guac with chips, which I find just sad. It's sad. It makes my heart sad.
That's crazy. I got people on my case about like, I've never been in negative degree weather or in anything lower than 20 degrees.
Well, come over to my house, buddy.
I know.
It was -1 yesterday morning.
That's why everybody, but like not having guacamole on a chip or understanding, that's crazy. That's crazy.
Joe, is there anything that you've never done? Like food
nope.
wise? Or
I've lived a very full life.
Oh, yeah.
No, just
I have a pretty good one. You guys want to hear it?
What's yours?
Yeah.
I have never had a Big Mac. Never.
Oh, that's interesting.
Really?
That's interesting. I can see that.
Well, guess what? A couple
You're a
weeks,
healthy fella.
3 of us are going to be in Vegas together. We're going to rectify that. We're doing the Big Mac video.
Challenge accepted. Andrew Erickson's first Big Mac, and I can tell you right now, he's not going to like it.
No.
So make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'll try to put a short up on it. And by the way, speaking of Betting Pros, before we get to all the props for the week, we've also got another way for you to get involved and have your voice heard when it comes to what happens on the BP podcast. So help us shape the future of the Betting Pros pod by taking our quick and easy survey at bettingpros.com/survey. That's right. Share your feedback. Help us improve. I mean, I guess there's improvement to be had, but seriously, we love to hear from our people. We love our community of Betting Pros, and all it takes is just a minute or two at bettingpros.com/survey to get your voice heard and hopefully more of the content that you've come to love and expect from us over here at Betting Pros. All right, boys, it's time to shift gears now and start to look at Championship Sunday and the props, and I can only hope for everybody watching that they're only filling out the survey next week, because after last week, only one correct call between the two of you. Gentlemen, we've got to do better here. We just have to do better. And sometimes that happens. And I'm sure a lot of people, I'm sure a lot of us were thinking Detroit Lions, the Jayden Daniels story would end. It did not end. And I'm sure, some of the injuries that happened to, Jalen Hurts getting hurt, some things got a little messy at times. But it's time to be better. Welsh, I want you to start us off on the right foot for Championship Sunday. Go ahead.
All the feet are better than last week. We can literally only go up at this point. Yeah, it was pretty brutal. Did just barely miss, by the way. Jayden Daniels, I had 22.5 completions. 22 he finished at, but yeah, it was a brutal week last week. So we turned the corner. Erickson and I, we've been talking this week over on Fantasy Pros as well, that try to get less cute as much as possible. Last week we're like, oh, DeAndre Hopkins, we're gonna play these and we're gonna have fun with that. No, you just got to get down to brass tacks. Like, how did we not jump in on Travis Kelce going ballistic? So we're turning the corner. I locked in very early this week, and I love some of these props. So my first one of the week, we're going to go back to Jayden Daniels. We're going to do it a couple times. I really think Washington, no matter what, is going to make this a competitive game, whether, you think they're going to win or, if you're just a big Eagles guy. I think he is going to definitely continue that pace of where he has been at. And that is why I moved away from completions, even though I've done it 2 straight weeks and he does get the 20, and I am going to jump over to passing yards, 22.4. I think it might even been floating around 223, 224 at this point. But Jayden Daniels has been going over this number 5 of his last 6 games, including against the Eagles. Daniels has attempted 30 or more passes in 6 straight games, not including that week 18 where he was out. And he's a completions monster. And that's my big play here, is that he full throttle is 20 plus completions every single game. If you could get 19 and a half, that would be an absolute rocker. But we saw Diami Brown, the one prop that we did hit, go up. We've seen Terry McLaurin make big plays. Zach Ertz is going to be involved. It's a tough defense, but Jayden Daniels makes it even more difficult with how he moves around in the pocket. I love the passing yards because also if they are playing from behind, they are passing. So Jayden Daniels, a low passing yard total that I am very, very in on, 224.5 over for this weekend.
You know, it's funny, in passing, you mentioned Travis Kelce, and I see that neither of you have selected him. Fun fact, everybody, if you like stats, Travis Kelce is the first player in NFL history to have 70-plus receiving yards in 14 straight playoff games. This is from NFL Stats.
Absurd.
14 straight playoff games. You know who's the second closest? You want to take a shot on this one, Erickson?
Edelman.
Who's the second
of
longest streak?
all time,
Edelman.
or like current?
Edelman.
No, it's not Edelman.
Jerry Rice.
It is a player of recent note, though. Somebody who used to go first and play in fantasy leagues for a couple years there. He had a window of greatness before he had a window of insanity.
Antonio Brown.
Yeah.
Antonio Brown! Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah.
Give that man a Big Mac. Somebody give him a... All right.
Extra guac on it.
Ew, gross. You
never had guac on a burger?
Tijuana McDonald's. I have.
Not specifically on a Big Mac. Well, obviously.
Yeah. Chicken sandwich, yes. Chicken sandwich, good. On the burger, I don't like it. All right. Erickson, let's start with you. This is something that we talked about yesterday too. Touch on Austin Ekeler. We both think he's going to be highly involved in this game out of necessity. So how do you want to approach that from a betting standpoint?
Yeah, I like the over Austin Ekeler, over 49.5 rushing and receiving yards. And after going 0-5 my props last week, I looked to outside sources to try to help me get props right. So I went to the BettingPros YouTube comments earlier this week at Kendall G. Little or Kendall G. Little or Kendall G. Little or Kendall Glittle. I'm not exactly sure how the name is pronounced.
I think you said or Kendall G. Little 3 times. And I was trying to figure out what's the difference between these 3.
It's a very confused. Well, Glittle would be the other way. It's a very confusing.
I think it's G. Little.
It's a confusing username. But regardless, looking at the BettingPros YouTube comments, and they came to me and they said, "Hey, what about this Austin Ekeler over his rushing and receiving yards?" And I looked at it, I was like, "Man, this is a really good prop."
Yeah.
You look at, he has 50 plus rushing receiving yards, 11 of 14 games this year. That's 79%. When as an underdog, when the Commanders have been underdogs this year, 6-0 towards the over on the road, 7-1 towards the over, and that's at 50 plus rushing and receiving yards from scrimmage. So the prop itself, you can find, I've found as low as 45.5, I think on FanDuel, but you can tease it up to or alt it up to 50 plus rushing and receiving yards. You get a plus 110 on FanDuel Sportsbook. So I think that this is some really low hanging fruit. So shout out to the BettingPros YouTube comments. Continue to pile them in because God knows I need help getting props right. So shout out G, Little, Kendall, however your name is pronounced. Hopefully this one hits.
Look, this is a community here, okay? This is what we're doing. We're doing this together. It's us against the world here. It's not us against each other. That's the beautiful thing about betting as opposed to fantasy. You know, you're trying to beat that friend or that colleague. No. We're just trying to beat the books. That's what we're trying to do. And if the books get the best of you one week, you come back and you fight some more. Let's go to Jayden Daniels for another prop here. The passing touchdowns, Welsh, 1.5 is the number, and you're getting plus money on the over, plus 125. And you want to lock this in. Tell me why.
Yeah. So back a second Jayden Daniels marker here. Plus money, 125 on 1.5 touchdowns. Love that. He has thrown for 2 or more touchdowns in 7 of his last 8 games. Love that one. He's also done it in both of these playoff games. He hit this in one of his 2 Eagles matchups. I think the one where he hit it was 5 touchdowns. And talking about the completions again, he has completed 22 and 24 completions against the Eagles this year, which I really like. So, he is not being thrown off of the game that, we have been seeing over this last 2-month stretch. If they're playing from behind, they're throwing the ball. If they are up, it is going to be from him passing the ball. It's going to be Terry McLaurin. I really specifically think, and I think Erickson agrees, it's probably going to be Zach Ertz as well. But he's been finding the end zone. He's a high completion quarterback. Him moving around the pocket has been very, very beneficial, even against a really struggling defense. So he's been smashing this over on the 2 touchdowns. I get why it would be plus money too. Implied that the Eagles, if they're going to be winning by a touchdown, that Jayden Daniels is going to be held behind, but I think they're going to make it very competitive. I love the 2 touchdown marker. It's actually kind of tougher, as you like to do those little parlays, you could do the over passing yards and the 2 touchdowns. I don't know what that would end up being, but plus money for 2 touchdowns for Jayden Daniels in this important of an environment where he threw 5 in their last matchup. Thank you very much, Jayden Daniels. Let's cash it.
All right, let's talk about Dallas Goedert, Andrew Erickson, because his prop this week is 36.5 for the receiving yards. Tell us why you like the over.
So this is an original one for me. So if you want to start the fade, you should start fading me now. Full disclosure. So Dallas Goedert, 47 yards, back-to-back games and favorable matchups. I think this is another good matchup against the Commanders defense. Washington has allowed 6 of the last 7 tight ends they have faced to go over their receiving yards projection. And I feel like when Hurts does drop back to throw the ball, it's really been Dallas Goedert that has been his kind of go-to guy over the last couple of weeks when the chemistry really hasn't necessarily been there as much with A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith. So I think they're going to continue to feed Dallas Goedert. He has the lowest receiving yards prop among the top Eagles pass catchers, where you're having Smith and A.J. Brown more in that 55, 60 yards. I mean, Goddard's going over this number again. 3 straight games and the last 2 with Jalen Hurts as his quarterback. And he missed the second game against the Commanders, but back in week 11 in the first matchup, he had 5 catches, caught all 5 of his targets for 61 yards, had a 20% target share. So I expect Hurts to continue to feed Dallas Goedert in the passing game. So I'm going to go with the over.
When I was curious real quick, are you interested at all in his longest reception? Because that's been the thing he's been killing. Just gets that one big play. 17.5 longest reception on Dallas Goedert. Just throw it out there. Might be kind of juicy.
Yeah, I like that too. I know he's been a monster after the catch.
Yeah.
Like that's really where he's been generating a lot of these big plays. So it's not even that they're targeting him downfield, but he breaks one tackle and then it's off to the races.
So yeah.
One of the biggest slam dunk bets for the last couple of weeks has been Jalen Hurts over on the rushing total. The number was 29.5. It's moved up to 31.5. And he has still gone over this every single week except week 9. Since week 9, except for week 13 against the Baltimore Ravens. And the Baltimore Ravens, historically this year, very good against the run. So we'll give him a pass on that. But I got to ask you this week, are you that confident in it to bet it, Welsh, with the concern regarding his knee issue and whether or not he is truly 100%? We know he's going to play, but playing and playing hurt are two different things. So do you think Hurts, with this number now sitting at 32.5, can still hit the over this week?
Yeah, and I think that's why the number is lower. Like, clearly it is like any concern of the knee. But I do believe the first play off of coming back with getting banged up, he rushed, and it was like a decently long rushing attempt. So he's tough. He said nothing is going to keep him out of the game. I don't think anything is going to change. And one of the big things about this is my questions of the passing game. Jalen Hurts has just not looked great as a passer. This offense has not felt comfortable. They're not going to rely on heavy passing. Dude does not pass the ball. The 30 pass attempts since week 5. He has had only one game where he has thrown 30 or more passes. That's absurd. One game since week 5 where he's had 30 more pass attempts. So they're obviously going to rush with Saquon Barkley, who's got an absurd 128-yard rushing prop this week. But Jalen Hurts, unless he is off the field, he's still going to run. He has gone over this number in both matchups against Washington. He has had, and this is what I like, and I'm going to give you an extra little prop here. He has had a longest rush of 22 or more yards in 4 of his last 5 games. So that alone almost gets to the prop of 32.5, 31.5 is where it's sitting. So I like this. I don't think anything is going to keep him off of his big rushes. Maybe he's not going to rush 9-10 times. He is implied, by the way, around 8.5 rush attempts. So I think he's still going to run. He's had good success of getting some long runs against Washington. And then if you're a little bit scared, I know Erickson, we talked about this earlier in the week on Fantasy Pros. You don't like that number? Longest rush is 11.5. And I just told you 4 of his last 5 games, he's had a 22 or longer. I understand the worry of the knee, but I feel very confident. Nothing is going to keep him from just taking the ball down and going, because he does not seem confident in passing when they do that.
That's for sure.
And they're going to lock down A.J. Brown, and I think he's going to be running.
Welsh, do you think so I was looking at just like the first quarter numbers for Jalen Hurts. So it's minus 120 for Jalen Hurts to rush for 5 yards in the first quarter. I feel like if his legs are good to go, they're going to make him run like immediately.
I love that.
Like a similar way like Mahomes was like, his ankle is broken. Like, and then he immediately rushes for a touchdown in like the first drive of the game.
Them not thinking he's going to run it all and they just play action Saquon. Absolutely.
So yeah, there's some fun first quarter rushing props on her. Again, it's minus 120 for him to rush for 5 yards.
Love it.
So
you're getting right now, I'm looking on the BettingPros app, you're getting 31.5 still on FanDuel, on DK, on BetMGM. So some places like Bet365 are up to 32.5, but not every place. So there's still some value, and that's why you sync your sports books, and that's why you download the BettingPros app so you can find the best line that you could possibly get, and you bet it. Now, Erickson, the last one you have for this game, it breaks my heart. because I've been making a lot of money on this guy all year long. Terry McLaurin, I made the over on his season yardage total. He's been so good, but he has been a little lacking in these games against this really good Eagles secondary. I want to throw out all the stats just completely off the window and just get rid of them all, because I feel like we're in just this weird uncharted territory. They're playing each other for a third time, but the process is good, and it makes me sad because you have an under on McLaurin 64.5, and it feels like the right process.
Well, without this under, then we would have no unders on the show. So I would be doing a disservice as the Undertaker on the Betting Pros program to not.
Well, you could take a Keon Coleman under for once.
No,
you could try that.
Never.
See how that fits for you.
No, not this one.
Under pass attempts on Jalen Hurts.
I mean, is the number, is it 20 now? I mean, it must have been.
It was 24.5 earlier in the week, but sorry, we can't get over it.
Pass attempts right now, 24.5 is the best number.
I mean, that would also probably be a pretty good under, but if he's running less, then he might throw the ball more. So again, going back to the process behind Terry McLaurin, look, he's faced the Eagles twice this year, and he's been under 64.5 receiving yards in both games. The Eagles clearly know who the number one receiver on the Commanders is, and it's Terry McLaurin, and they've limited him in back-to-back matchups. Now, he was better in the second matchup. Cliff Kingsbury did move him around the formation a little bit more, but Quinion Mitchell's going to play in this game. So he's still going to get a lot of shadow coverage, or a lot of coverage from Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. I think that I think the Eagles defense is really going to try to force the Commanders to beat them with Zach Ertz, Austin Ekeler, Zacchaeus, Diami Brown, and they're going to really try to focus on taking away Terry McLaurin. So 64.5, I mean, it's a pretty big number too. He hasn't been really close to it in both matchups, so I'm going to take the under.
Well, he actually hit 60 in week 16 against the Eagles, but still under the 64.5. So
problem is he's been the most dynamic downfield wide receiver in the NFL. Like I think
he gets those big plays, right?
Exactly. But even last week, right? He wasn't a big down. He had 58-yard catch and run last week. Yeah. So that was different from. So again, if he gets tackled, then it's a little bit different. So again, I think the Eagles team more sure tackling. He's not playing the Buccaneers. He's not playing the Lions.
He did improve, though. I mean, I'm looking here, week 11 over on BP. He had just 10 receiving yards.
I mentioned
it was a bad week.
They moved him around more in the second matchup against the
Eagles. That was better. It was better. So, look, maybe they'll figure it out. But you're right. If I'm Nick Sirianni and I'm head coach of the Eagles, I'm trying to make somebody else beat me besides Terry McLaurin. I'm taking away the big guy and making Jayden Daniels just find it with other guys. Now,
which they did last week.
He's been able to do it.
They did it last
week. He's doing it. Diami Brown, Zacchaeus. I mean, it's crazy what he's doing right now with what he's doing it with. But Jayden Daniels, very exciting player. Also exciting, our prop bet cheat sheet, which is where we're getting a lot of this stuff from. So if you want to take a look at some of these lines right now that I keep mentioning here, go to bettingpros.com/props, or again, download the Betting Pros app, look for the prop bet cheat sheet, and let the prop bet cheat sheet guide you. You could filter by prop, by matchup, by game, the odds, anything you possibly can fathom. The prop bet cheat sheet can figure it out for you, and you'll get tailored recommendations and track winning trends to see everything you possibly can when it comes to props using this comprehensive tool. Take your prop betting to the next level at bettingpros.com/props or on the Betting Pros app today. Download that bad boy, and a little refresh the dev team did on the prop bet cheat sheet. So good. So good. Dev team just crushing it. All right, let's get to the next section here. Let's talk a little about the night game. The Bills, the Chiefs. And let's start with Khalil Shakir. 5.5 is the total for receptions. And Welsh, you're going over.
And I'm taking plus money. I think this is a squad ride too. I think, I'm not sure if you're with it, Joe, but I think Erickson
I am
is
not.
with me. Okay, then you're not, but I think Erickson is with me on this. Khalil Shakir, 5.5 over receptions, another plus money play. He has had 6 receptions in both of his playoff games. Something that's really great over at points data or fantasy points. Sorry, fantasy points, want to give them credit. Their data suite is incredible. Looking at the playoffs and the postseason, Khalil Shakir is currently the number 1 read of all wide receivers in the postseason of all the teams that have played. So even if he had one game in the percentages, he is the number 1 read wide receiver. Chiefs have the second highest in the NFL in too high, leaving the middle field open. Another stat that Fantasy Points has in their data suite. They were number 2 in the regular season of that. And that's where Khalil Shakir plays. In the playoffs, they're even higher. They're clearly number 1, but a 70% middle of the field open when they run too high. Number 1 of all of them. And this is where, like I said, Khalil Shakir eats. He has been essentially the number 1 read for Josh Allen. I think the Bills might be in a position where they're playing from behind. They are passing a bit more. I want to say Josh Allen had, I think, 40 pass attempts in that matchup they had earlier this year. And Khalil Shakir has been, like I said, the number one read guy. So 5.5 when he has hit this in both for plus money is an absolute play for me. So Khalil Shakir plus money receptions.
You're still getting 4.5 at BetMGM, Caesars, ESPN Bet. Just looking on BettingPros.com.
What's the juice?
See, kids. The juice, heavy at BetMGM minus 160.
Yeah, I was gonna say they're all gonna be minus
155. When you get to the 5.5, that's where the juice comes in on FanDuel plus 114, on DK plus 115. So you can find some of it in the over category at some positive juice there when you go up. So it depends on how you want to play this one. All right, let's talk about Josh Allen here. Andrew Erickson, 228.5 is the passing yard total. I'm on this one. I'm on the over on here because I think Josh Allen's going to have to get real physical in the second half of this football game. So are you with me on this over when it comes to his passing yards?
Yes, and Welsh kind of mentioned already the last time that they faced the Kansas City Chiefs, Josh Allen threw the ball 40 times. It was not what we saw last week with Baltimore where they were really running the football. I think they want to be and have to be a little bit more aggressive here. You need to build a lead against the Kansas City Chiefs, in my opinion, for them to beat them. And when the Bills have played on the road, because if you look at the last month or so of their games, they've mostly been home games outside of the backups playing in New England. So last 4 road games for Josh Allen, he's attempted 32 plus pass attempts in 7 of those 8 games. And then you look at, he's actually been for over 280 passing yards in his last 4 road games. So playing in Kansas City, Arrowhead Stadium, the Bills posted a plus 4% pass rate over expectation the last time they faced the Chiefs. I think they're going to throw the ball a decent chunk here. And I think that means we're going to see one of these Bills receivers pop, including Khalil Shakir. But, you know, guys who also didn't play in that previous matchup, Keon Coleman didn't play. Dalton Kincaid didn't play. So I think that they're going to throw the ball a little bit here. Josh Allen, 228.5. This is a pretty low number for, you know, an MVP level quarterback. So I like taking the over on Josh Allen.
Well, plus you also have a scenario where Kansas City's always been good against the run all year. So you might be forced into that role of having to throw the football more than maybe you want to. And the Chiefs are not good against tight ends, too. We just talked about that on the last show where Dalton Kincaid might be a guy to really kind of hone in on as well. All right, let's go to somebody on the Chiefs finally. Jeez. Boy, oh boy. No respect for the Kansas City Chiefs on this show. You got one prop? One? For all the Chiefs?
Because the best prop is Chiefs money line. That's why. You just take the Chiefs to win.
Yeah, I mean... Anyway, let's talk about Xavier Worthy here. You've got a ladder potentially you're building to heaven here with Xavier Worthy.
I'm gonna go out to heaven on the proper way at the end of the season. So we don't buyer beware, of course, off of last week, but I'm looking to recoup. And this was the number one thing I came into when I started my process earlier in the week, was honing in on Xavier Worthy. I love Xavier Worthy. In that process, I told you about Khalil Shakir being the number one read. Well, guess what? Number 2 in all of the postseason has been Xavier Worthy. He's at a 35% first read percentage, which you got to love, obviously, one game. 66% design. That was the number one. So he has been the number one of wide receivers, and I think tight ends, or of any of the pass catchers, of design plays towards them. So that leads us to his receiving yard prop, which has moved down one notch to 49.5. It was at 50.5. He has hit this in 2 of his last 3 games. Now, I told you about ladder. We are going to go 49.5. We're going to go 60 plus, and we're going to go to 70 plus. At 60 plus, it's plus 140. At 70 plus, it's plus 220. Why? Well, that 49.5, it has hit in 2 of the last 3 games. That 60 has hit in 2 of the last 3 games. And the 70 has hit 1 of the last 3 games. Against the Bills earlier this year, he went over 60, scored a touchdown, and he's had 9 or more targets in 3 of his last 4 games. He's the number 1 wide receiver there. Callsc, the number 1 wide receiver, of course, but the depth of target for Worthy has not been there this year, but he is one of the most explosive players. So even if they're running screen passes, they are throwing him the ball consistently. He scored a touchdown against this team, and I just really like the placement here. So he does not go over 70. So if you wanted to really risk it, he has never hit 80 yards in his professional career. You could go higher. I'm capping it at 70, so I am laddering 50, 60, and 70 for Xavier Worthy this weekend.
Now, I teased the Keon Coleman bet.
Oh, we weren't getting cute.
I thought so too, but Andrew Erickson is getting cutesy, getting demure. doing all the things.
As I just
So
laddered.
let's talk
by
about
the way.
Yeah. Welsh just puts out a ladder, and now I'm getting cute because of a receiver who has a 20.5 receiving yards prop to go.
But
go
if there
over
is
his-
one bad player on this list, you're going to give it to us.
Keon Coleman, I don't
Yes.
think he's a bad player.
Of the
Why
players.
is he a bad player?
So, okay,
Oh.
rank the players. Who's the worst player on this list?
Well, that was just like in general of guys that we've talked about.
Yes.
I mean, Jalen Hurts really hasn't looked that good.
No, he hasn't.
All right, go on.
That's right. All right, Keon Coleman, take us
I
through the number, take us through the reasoning. I know it's a low number, 20.5. I get it. But at the same time, like, it's something he's barely flirted with. He had 31 against New England. He had 27 against the Jets. In the game before that against New England, 17. The Denver game, 5. In the Baltimore game, 5. So the recent trend is not great for this. What do you see that's going to be different in this game against KC?
Well, the thing about all those games is where were they played? In Buffalo, where the Bills have adopted we're going to run the ball at all costs. But on the road, as we talked about with Josh Allen earlier, they like to throw the ball a little bit more. Bills rookie receiver Keon Coleman, 26 receiving yards, 6 straight road games. So when he's away from Buffalo, when Buffalo's throwing the ball more, Keon Coleman is much more involved in this offense. So given that in terms of usage, he's second only to Khalil Shakir in terms of snaps played and routes run among the Bills wide receivers. So they rotate everybody, but Shakir is the staple in the slot, and Keon Coleman runs the most routes from the outside. So I think that his receiving yards prop in a game where we're expecting Buffalo to potentially throw the ball more, I think his prop is the most exploitable. So in half of those road games as well, he's gone for 49 or more receiving yards. All those games where he has 49 or more receiving yards, the Bills were road underdogs. So the projections agree with me here on the prop bet cheat sheet. They have him closer to 27 receiving yards. I like his touchdown odds, as we'll get into. And a fun bet you can make this week on FanDuel is looking at receivers to lead Sunday in receiving yards. There are 3 receivers on Sunday's slate that have a 125-yard receiving yard game on their resume this year. Terry McLaurin, Keon Coleman, and Dallas Goedert. His odds are 31-1 to lead all receivers in receiving yards this week. And he's the one that has the second highest on his resume this season. So as a fun bet, I think Keon Coleman.
Good arguments.
One thing I want to add, I like about your Keon Coleman one, but just want to throw this out. Keon Coleman makes big plays. His longest reception is 13.5 this week. 11 of 13 regular season games he played, he went way over that. He demolished that number, 11 of 13. So maybe something to play in there if you're also a little bit worried. You just played that longest reception of 14 yards. Kish it.
All right. So Keon Coleman, the case has been made. Let's call some touchdowns. And remember, if you want an edge in calling touchdowns yourself, you should use our touchdown score report. Our touchdown score report compares anytime touchdown stats to prop bet odds and projections to help identify the best anytime touchdown bets on the planet. Head to bettingpros.com/touchdown for the latest touchdown prop analysis today. I'm going to go and buck the trend here a little bit. I'm going to give some love. Even though Terry McLaurin might have a long day at the office, I still think he finds a way to score. Big time players show up in big moments, so maybe he might not have the big yardage total, but damn it, he's going to find the end zone. Give me Terry McLaurin at plus 145 because that's been the go-to guy all year for Jayden Daniels. And if the Commanders have a shot here to beat the Eagles, I think TMC needs to find the end zone. And of course, the guy that nobody wants to talk about on the show, Travis Kelce, Mr. Playoff himself, on the final run off into the sunset before he retires as a 3-time in a row champion. Plus 130, Travis Kelce to score a touchdown. Boys, lock it up. That's where I'm going. Welsh, where are you going for your touchdown calls for Championship Sunday?
Well, I love Xavier Worthy, as I mentioned. He is almost 2-1. It was around plus 195. He scored against the Bills the last matchup that they had this year. Bills have given up a touchdown to a wide receiver in 7 straight games. And he's also a little bit of a threat to have those end arounds. So I love Xavier Worthy. And a deeper play is Zach Ertz at 3-1 plus 300. He has had the most end zone targets so far in the playoffs. Eagles have given up a touchdown or 7 touchdowns to tight ends on the year. If I could speak, good Lord. Eagles 7 touchdowns to tight ends on the year, and Ertz has scored against them already and is one of the most targeted players in the end zone so far. So I think Jayden Daniels loves him. They shut down McLaurin and Zach Ertz back in the end zone at 3-1.
Love the Ertz call. Scoring in Philadelphia. I'm all for the narrative. Give me the narrative anytime. All right, Andrew Erickson, you did some overtime here. You picked a bunch of touchdowns here. So let's see what's going on here. How come you got 3? And
making up
2?
for last week because I'm laddering.
Well,
touchdown in.
Last week, the only call I did right was Isaiah Likely. over
That's
Mark Andrews
true.
scoring
You
the
nailed that
touchdown.
one.
That was and that basically saved me because that was plus 400. So
If only the Ravens had bet on Isaiah Likely to score more touchdowns.
I know they
or
should have
2-point
thrown him.
conversions.
They should have thrown him the 2-point conversion, but we don't need to get into that. So
No, we
I'm
don't.
clean sweep with Zach Ertz. I think at 3-1. I think that this is. I think these odds are kind of. I don't think they match up with his role in this offense. Like he is the number one red zone guy, especially if they're trying to take away Terry McLaurin, like we talked about in the under and his receiving yards props. So Zach Ertz at 3-1 in a revenge game. Joe, as you like to say. So I co-signing on that.
I say comically and lovingly is what I say. I mean, I know he's been there a couple times already. It's just fun. It's just fun, but it is a playoff game and it is a little different set of circumstances. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, he's clearly motivated he clearly hates the Eagles. He like has nothing to do with the Eagles. Like this franchise ruined me. I need to beat them. So Keon Coleman's my other guy that I really like. Plus 340. Talked about his receiving yards prop. Think he's going to be involved here. And he's a guy that they go to a lot in the red zone, right? So if it isn't Dalton Kincaid or one of these tight ends stepping up, Keon Coleman is a ball winner, contested catch savant. Again, these Chiefs corners play tight. If someone needs to go up and make a play, I think Keon Coleman can come down with a touchdown in the red zone. So I like him at plus 340. And then a player that we mentioned at the top, Austin Ekeler. Again, I think we all agree he's going to be really involved in this game as both a rusher and receiver. I know that a lot of the red zone attempts go to Brian Robinson, but Ekler still has a role in the red zone. Like he sees targets out of the backfield. He does get an occasional red zone rushing attempt. And if anything, it's just a way for the Commanders offense to kind of catch the defense off guard where, it's obviously going to be Daniels or Brian Robinson getting the carry here. Oh, well, then they're going to use Ekler on a screen out of the backfield. So Austin Ekeler actually has the most receiving yards among running backs this year without a receiving touchdown. So as we like to say, regression always hits and comes to a mean. I think it happens here in Conference Championship weekend. Austin Ekeler, anytime touchdown at plus 320.
All right. Austin Ekeler, Zach Ertz, Travis Kelce, lot to like this weekend. What do you guys like? Drop your comments below. What's your favorite touchdown call? I want you to drop them down in the comments here on the YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Ring the bell till it goes ding for notifications because we're going to have a whole lot of Super Bowl content too. Oh my goodness. 2 weeks of talking about the same game. I don't know about you, but I can't wait for it. It's going to be great. And in all seriousness, make sure you subscribe to the Betting Pros podcast as well, wherever you get your pods. And we've been doing a lot more live stuff, and I just want to thank everybody who's been joining us here for all the live stuff we've been doing the last few weeks and weekends too during the games. We appreciate you being part of this community here, so we want to take you into a very healthy, robust 2025 of content. And remember, you can have your voice heard when it comes to that content if you go right now to the survey, take the survey, bettingpros.com/survey. That's right. That's what it is. All right. That'll do it for us. But the story of the game goes on for the Welsh and Andrew Erickson. I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.